right, so Garrett Harding, based on what we did yesterday, there's few scientists that you have to know in environmental science, but he's one of them. This is going to be an AP question. You're going to hear me say that a lot, and I really mean it. It will be a question. Garrett Harding is the one who discovered tragedy of the commons, and that's what we did yesterday. It's a perfect example, oceans, of tragedy of the commons today. They, by commons, I mean lands that are available to all, and the tragedy is that we abuse that land, or we deplete that land, or we take it to a state of non-use. And we don't want to do that. We want to keep Earth's resources available, remember, and live sustainably. But usually when that happens, it's something that takes it to a state where you can't return. And this is what the scary part of environmental science is, hitting that, what they call a tipping point, where you really struggle to get it back. This picture shows, think of land back in the day. You claimed land, it had horses and cows, and they grazed and grazed and grazed, and eventually the land could look like this land that's doing it wrong. What they have to do is keep it organized, like fence the animals, let them feed in a specific area, and then move on. Because animals will graze and graze and graze until there's nothing left. That's what we did to our ocean. We fished and fished and fished, really until the point of no return. Because if you go to restaurants, and I promise you, and it makes me kind of cringe that there's tilapia on the menu at a restaurant, right? Well, how do you get that? They farm it. So it's not a fish that they caught in the ocean, that they was fresh, and no, it's a farm. And they're farmed in your backyard. Like if you go to North Carolina, they have tilapia farms in the backyard of the person. It's not even a river or a lake. It's just a fake pond. So yes, not good. Questions? All right, so solutions to tragedy of the commons. What are they? Looking at the pictures, you should be able to give me some answers. Yep, give ownership to property. Did I uncover the wrong things? Yeah. What else? Use at. Oh, that's here. Okay, yeah, see, this is what I did yesterday. I saved the wrong thing. Regulate access and restrict the use of the resource, okay? You can't deny the resource if it's available, but you have to do things to make sure. So in terms of our oceans, what have we done? Regulated how?
By making sure there's catch limits.
Catch limits, that's perfect. So you can only bring in 4 of this kind. What else? Size, and there's one more. Seasons. Okay, so look at the extremes we had to take. 3. There's per person limits, size and season limits in order to help make sure that we're going to leave fish for the future. All right, so last thought on resource depletion, because all that topic is about resources. U.S. citizens make approximately 30 times as much blank. U.S. citizens blank approximately 30 times. Give me, look at the pictures. I put them there so you give me the answers quickly. Money, what else? Consume and waste. So we spend more, buy more, and we waste more. These are a few words. Pollution and degradation. Introduction, and 2 of them I don't even really introduce because they're too in-depth. What's the definition of pollution? Introduction of what?
Waste, harmful materials into the environment.
Good. Harmful, let's say chemicals instead of materials, because it could be a material, but inside that material is a chemical, and that's what causes harm. And of course, I throw in degradation there because any change to a lower state can be from pollution, but it's also a land issue, an air issue, and a water issue. So we want to keep that in mind. These are the last 2 environmental problems. Well, actually, we have one more, but they're so in-depth, they have their own unit like everything else. We'll talk about them later. Just know that if you talk about climate change, you're talking about global warming, and waste, you're talking about eliminating or discarding of something. And it could be, I showed you e-waste yesterday. I thought this was funny. Atari, like, who thought of those? How many of those? I had one. I found that picture. And this is radioactive waste, which of course would never be dumped that way. Well, it shouldn't be. Yes, correct. Yeah. So loss of biodiversity, last major problem. What is diversity? If you're talking about diversity of life, give me examples.
Different types of species.
Good. So we got species diversity. Where's my mouse? Whoops. Don't I always do that? Species, genes, and what else? Think bigger than species. Ecosystems. Good. So you got diversity of a whole ecosystem, like a coral reef. You got diversity of genes, and we're going to talk more. Again, this is just an introduction. Diversity means variety and quantity, okay? So number and types. That's what diversity is. And if you have loss of biodiversity, you have a loss of that, which has like a chain effect for every other environmental problem. Live sustainably, again, we bring this topic back up. And there's 4 principles that nature provides that are 4 principles of sustainable, okay? Or living sustainably. Look at the pictures. Rely on what? Sunlight. So we rely on sun. The sun provides us all the energy we need for our planet. Without it, we cannot have life on this planet. What else? Try to interpret these pictures. This is actually a picture from the back of your textbook, I believe. What's happening here? What do you see here?
They're using the nature.
They're using nature. Okay, so if we use nature, what are we doing? If we're using nature, what are we doing? We're using resources. So nature provides us with what we need, and we cycle it, matter and energy. That would be this picture. I know it looked like this one, but that's a food chain, right? What's here? What does this picture show you that's different from the others? There could actually be test questions like this. I give you these pictures and I tell me what's happening. I swear. So what's happening? There you go. That's exactly what it is. There's diversity and you need it. Diversity provides you ways to adapt and change to the environment. And what's the last one? What does it look like is happening in the last one? What does it look like though? They're not about to eat. Okay, so who's helping? The wolves are what? In a pack, defending what? They're defending themselves. So competition limits growth and helps population control. How do we look at the environment? There's 3 ways. Even though we're thinking sustainably, a lot of people don't. So this is the way they look at it. And I put bunnies to represent my 3 worldviews. We've got planetary management, stewardship, and environmental wisdom. I think the names help you understand what type of worldview it is, except this one. So look at my bunnies. What do you think the first worldview is? Humans are the most important. We matter, and Earth is there for me to take. It's human-centered worldview. What about my stewardship? When you're a steward, what do? Protect. You care and manage for the earth, but you also think of the future. I mean, you care for you care for earth. So I'm calling him the middle. Okay, the middle guy. Environmental, the word says it all. What do you think of? You think of the environment first. You think of everything that has to do with earth to be protected, and earth is there for us to take care of, not just take from. So here's the depressing fact that we have only 50 years to make these changes, and some of them it's too late already, and we're going to talk about that. There's certain things that we've done that are pretty much irreversible. So this is why this class exists. You have to think of changes now. So what's the key? Not curing something. What's the key? I already mentioned it. Prevention. When the word prevention appears on your AP exam, that is the first choice always. Highlight it, underline it, star it, do whatever you have to remember that prevention is the key to success. I think that's actually on my next slide. No. So if we want to start with prevention, we start with what? No, before that. Reduce. So that's conservation, yes. And then you think of reusing, which is a lower state, but it's still good. And then recycle when you didn't start with prevention. Does that make sense? So that's the order. Looking at this slide, you see how this is kind of backwards? Because this is our tipping point. We usually do this first, but this would be source reduction is the best, or this is the hierarchy. Recycle and reuse is good, but not as good as that. What about here? Which one covers prevention and which one covers cure? Treatment, these two words, which is which? Treatment, I'm talking about these words, cure or prevention. I'm talking about these go where? Stop and reduce would be what?
Source reduction.
Prevention. Clean and dilute would be cure. You might have test questions like that. That's why I'm putting two little simple ones for you to see. So you were going here. Source reduction would be what? Now let's go back to cure or prevention. Source reduction.
Prevention.
Prevention. I'm just going to put a P. Recycle and reuse. They're in the middle, I would say. Kind of cure, because recycle is a cure. And reuse is somewhat of a prevention. Yeah? Okay. Treatment, cure. Disposal, none of the above. Yeah, not good. All right. Go green. Did anybody notice that this whole entire presentation was green?
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
There was a reason for that. Here's what I leave you with. If you make one change, so you saw your ecological footprint, if you do one change, you're already leaning towards helping somewhat. It's that simple. One change from each of us is 36 changes, or 37. No, I'm kidding, I don't know. So do everything you can. This comes from your book, and I think this is the last slide, yes? See, did you see that? So let's just fill out the words. This is the current emphasis, and this is what we need to shift to. See if you could come up with it. Pollution cleanup, the whole class should be able to say this answer. Prevention. Waste disposal.
Waste prevention.
Isn't that easy? Protecting species. This one's not that easy. You're close. Protecting habitats. She said protecting Earth, so it's kind of the same. Think of the big picture, right? Environmental degradation. Conservation. I don't even know what's there. Restoration. I'd say conservation would be better. Increasing resource use. Well, yes, definitely. It's, yes. That's the worst part. Not just using, but wasting. So using is bad, but think of how we use inefficiently. Does that make sense? So like a light bulb. If you change from light bulbs that produce a lot of waste, which would be heat and energy, and you use fluorescent or those light bulbs that cost more money, but in the end my light bulbs last 15 years now. It's the strangest thing, right? But they cost $20. Okay, that's what they mean by waste. So use less of the resource, definitely, but waste less, so buy more efficient cars to waste less petroleum. Population growth, population stabilization and control, only in environmental science. Depleting and degrading natural capital, protecting. Good job.